Fellow warriors, welcome aboard the Joshticle, and today we'll be conducting a trailer analysis of the first Dynasty Warriors Eiketsuden promotional video. Prepare your Musou attacks cause it's time for some Musou greatness. The trailer slowly invites us into what seems like an icy cave. As the camera gets closer, an unknown body is seen within the ice. Within this entrapment lies a mysterious girl who suddenly breaks free as she takes in her first breath. Say hello to Lee Xia, a completely new original character created solely for Eiketsuden. Why was she imprisoned within the ice, and how did she even break free? Excellent questions, but before I answer them for you, the footage ahead offers a little more context to this game. The revered poster boy himself, Zhao Yun, finally makes his appearance. Here he retains his image from the latest Dynasty Warriors. Eiketsuden does indeed recycle assets from Dynasty Warriors 8. This isn't necessarily bad as this does speed up development time. More examples of this will appear throughout the trailer. Let's inch on just a smidge more. Bear witness to the main cast of Eiketsuden. But who is this new guy? His name is Lei Bin, and like Lee Xia, he is also an original character. Right now, all you need to know about Lei Bin is that he is Yun's childhood friend. With this established, alongside some cross-referencing between current information, we now have all the answers to our former questions. To start off, the icy cave seen previously is supposedly a shrine. One day, Yun and Bin entered the shrine and discovered the sealed Lee Xia. This meeting between the trio somehow leads to her being freed. At the time of this video, it is currently unknown exactly how this happens. Allegedly, the two figure out how to release the seal. How? Your guess is as good as mine. So why and how was she sealed in the first place? Well, we don't completely know either. However, Xia has been confirmed to originate from another world. Her fantasy-inspired outfit also supports this fact. At this point, we don't even know if she is entirely human. Actually, it's likely Xia could be some sort of deity, similar in nature to the Warriors Orochi's mystic characters. Finally, it's worth mentioning that once freed, she proceeds to bestow special powers upon Zhao Yun. Further proving my speculated point that Lee Xia isn't exactly human, look at this. She's firing a Dragon Ball Z inspired energy beam. Just after that, we get a crystal clear view of her likeness. The outfit is very fantasy-like, as indicated by glowing blue orbs, feather motifs, and her ability to levitate. Funny enough, this isn't a surprise since it is the direction that the game devs decided on, as shown in the translated Famitsu interview with producer Atsushi Miyauchi. We can thank my awesome friend BlackKite for the translation. As a side note, the seiyuu, or Japanese voice actor of Lee Xia, is Minami Tsuda. If you've watched anime such as Guilty Crown, High School DxD, and Arpeggio of Blue Steel, or more relatably, you have played Tokiden Kiwami, chances are that your ears may have already met with her voice. Up next, Lei Bin shows off his supreme marksmanship of his rifle on a few peons. As expected, we get our fair share of time to examine his appearance. Compared to Xia's outfit, Bin's outfit is more aligned with the clothing you'd expect. It's simple and practical by Dynasty Warriors standards. The overall style and color palette of the outfit is very similar to Zhao Yun's. What stands out is his monocle, which gives him the impression as a knowledgeable character. In addition to that, also in the interview with Miyauchi, it is stated that Bin is the silent but intelligent type. This is a neat contrast between the wise Lei Bin and the uninformed Lee Xia, who knows nothing of this new world she has woken up to. I wonder how Bin's wit would stack up against Shu's sleeping dragon and Wei's imbecile exterminator. On top of that, Makoto Furukawa is the Japanese voice of Bin. Anime fans, rejoice! If you don't follow, I have one thing to say to you. Yes, Lei Bin is Saitama. That is all. As we get closer to the halfway mark of the trailer, we finally get our first look at actual gameplay. Unlike the usual Musou game's real-time combat, Eiketsuden is turn-based. A battlefield is divided into a square grid. Each of these individual squares act as an occupiable spot. You, the player, take control of an army divided into single units, each occupying one square at a time. The goal is straightforward. Maneuver your army across the battlefield and eradicate the enemy units. The first thing seen is Zhao Yun moving forward a few spaces to initiate battle with an enemy unit. The blue squares represent how far the selected unit can travel within one turn. Speaking of which, at the very top right corner directly under what seems to be a morale bar lies some Japanese text accompanied by the number 2. The katakana is read as Ta'n for turn, indicating that this specific clip takes place during the second turn of the player. In the process of moving a unit, their silhouette acts as a visible cursor. What's interesting here is that when the destination has been chosen, Zhao Yun magically teleports to the square without any running or walking animation. A bit weird, however, it's not a deal breaker by any means. Once Zhao Yun has been moved, a menu pops up with 3 options. Before we talk about this, let's take a detour above and address the user interface. Here in the top left corner, the player's current selected unit's information will always appear. We see a character icon, their name, and level. This specific clip presumably takes place very early in the game since both Yun and Bin are level 4. Next, we have a set of 3 gauges. The blue bar represents the character's health gauge. At the moment, Zhao Yun's health is full. The text and numbers above it indicate his current exact amount of health. The yellow bar is the signature Musou gauge we've come to expect from a Warriors game. In recent Musou games, the gauge holds up to 3 Musou attacks when full. Using my horrible Photoshop skills, it seems this is also the case in Eiketsuden. The final gauge, represented by a series of green bars, is the movement gauge. Yes, you heard that right. What exactly is going on here? Thankfully, our Musou brother BlackKite came to the rescue. When using certain attacks or moving a unit across the grid, the movement gauge depletes. It is also possible to chain attacks if you so desire, at the appropriate cost of course. Furthermore, at the end of every turn, all units regain 3 bars of movement by default. If you're curious, at maximum capacity the gauge holds up to 8 bars as showcased by my newbie Photoshop skills. Anyways, where were we? The menu that pops up after moving a unit. I can't read kanji at all, which is why I enlisted the help of my buddy BlackKite to translate. As such, from this point on assume that it was not I, but he who has done the actual translating for all kanji throughout the video. From top to bottom, we have Attack, Resonance, and Standby. Attack and Standby are fairly obvious. Depending on the situation, a player must make a decision, whether to stand by and conserve their movement stock, or use up said stock and unleash an attack. And then we have Resonance. At this point of time, all we know is that it has something to do with a linkage between characters and allies who share a good relationship. This explains why the option is unavailable as pointed out by the grayed out text. Now this is merely speculation on my part. Could nearby allies team up on enemies and unleash combo/chain attacks? Perhaps adjacent allies will be able to raise each other's stats depending on their relationship. The potential is definitely there, and hopefully Omega Force is able to tap into its deep reserves. Meanwhile, Zhao Yun decides to attack, and oh my Josh, tickles. That is a ton of stuff to examine.
Can anybody provide me with a decent challenge?
Challenge accepted. First off, Yun wields a spear, and the red squares surrounding him show us the range of his weapon, meaning he is able to attack enemies 1 square directly in the front, on the sides, and even behind him. A greenish-blue square will also appear under the targeted enemy units. Secondly, let's focus on the new menu that just popped up. Let's inspect the labels for each column. From left to right, name of attack, cost of attack, attack power, chain, effects, and attack range. Alright, so the first column contains all attacks that Zhao Yun knows. Each respective row is an attack, with each one varying in different aspects. For example, the currently selected attack will use up 1 bar from the movement gauge. Further down the row, it's clear that the base attack power of this attack is 7. To the right of that, in the chain column lies a single marker. We can only assume that the more markers there are, the bigger the chain will be. Onwards to the next column, effects. Surprisingly enough, in this scenario, the weakest attack is the only one with an additional effect. It looks like a shoe or boot. Logically, the assumption is that the attack will decrease the mobility of its victim. Finally, we have the attack range. The green square symbolizes the location of the unit dishing out the attack. On the other hand, the gray squares represent the attack's area of effect. In this case, the attack will deal damage to any enemies that are within the 2 squares ahead of Zhao Yun. The button below the rows of attacks is most definitely the confirm attack button. At the moment it's grayed out, but once the attack has been confirmed, it will light up as shown in this picture. We're not done yet, we still have these 2 areas of the UI to investigate. For now, let's have a look at the area up top. Descriptions and additional information of selected attacks will show up here. The matching text is proof of this. As for the white text, it's basically a generic retelling of the information in the row below. What is interesting here is this section. -20 or -20% refers to the effectiveness of the effect, aka the boot icon, which had something to do with decreasing mobility. Cool, now let's take a trip down south and inspect the UI down below. Here, the initial targeted enemy unit information will appear in relation to the selected attack. Based on the health gauge, it seems the attack will leave this enemy unit with 88 health. While it is hard to see, the proof lies in the unit's health gauge on the battlefield. Here, it's full, while in the UI, it is certainly shorter. The darker red pigment in the gauge indicates this estimated loss of health. Adjacent to the unit's profile lies more information. The text reveals the attack's estimated damage as 16. However, this does not factor in the possibility of critical attacks. Then there's the mobility icon, once again reminding the player of the effect. Lastly, the accuracy of the attack. 100% indicates that the attack will surely meet its mark and not miss. It really is astonishing how much one can learn from a single clip. Before we get a chance to learn even more, right before the battle takes place, the trailer unfortunately transitions to the next sequence. This time, Lei Bin is moved ahead. At this specific frame, a red outline appears, meaning that a square can only be occupied by a single unit at a time. No sharing spaces. As previously stated, Bin wields a gun, so how far is his attack range? Just have a look at this image. Look at that amazing range. That is insane. Anyways, the clip ends with Bin moving on to a square with a yellow aura. What is this aura? There are 2 possible reasons I can think of. One is that this could be a specific objective within the battle to initiate a scene or conversation. 2 is that this could be part of the tutorial or prologue. I'm not entirely too sure since this literally is the only time it appears in the trailer. I'd like to know what you guys think. By now, you've most certainly noticed the blue circles that appear as Bin is moved up. I also saw this in the past clip with Zhao Yun. These circles leave me perplexed. In both instances, the circles have a max range of 2 squares ahead in 4 directions. Yun's is akin to an X, while Bin's is more like a cross. I originally thought it had something to do with attack range, however that doesn't make sense since we already saw that red squares would indicate attack range. Adding on to that disapproval is that the circles are most definitely blue. Wouldn't the color blue imply something advantageous? With this in mind, here's my hypothesis. This may have something to do with resonance. We know that resonance has something to do with bonds between allies. Perhaps in order to use resonance, an ally must be standing on one of these blue circles. To add on more evidence, the circles never appear again in the trailer after this clip. But you know what also coincidentally never appears again throughout the trailer? The resonance option. I rest my case. That's just my hypothesis, but I'd really like to know what you guys think of the circles. One more mysterious thing is the electrical blue aura that surrounds Yoon and Bin in these two clips. Did I mention this also never appears again within the trailer? In the first clip, we see that it disappears once Yoon has been completely moved. Maybe this also has something to do with resonance. At this point, I'm just throwing out random guesses. Before we move on, one more thing piqued my interest. These two clips take place on the same battlefield, however, they have different camera angles. That's pretty neat. This is a perfect opportunity to explore the UI in the bottom right corner. What is seen here are the controls. Clarity of the UI here isn't very good, which is why this image will be used as a substitute. Starting from the left, the right stick rotates the camera. R3 or pressing down on the right stick will change the camera's position or angle as we've seen earlier. In this specific situation, L1 and R1 will rotate Zhao Yun. If an enemy was on the red square directly behind him, L1 or R1 must be pressed twice in a row in order to attack the enemy directly behind. X will cancel an action while circle will confirm an action. The reversal of X and circle might shock some of you, but this is actually the norm in Japanese games. With that understood, let's continue with the footage. The camera pans away from what seems to be the enemy commander of this battle. Once the camera closes in on Lei Bin, an arrow-like marker is seen on his square. Its purpose is to clearly show which direction a unit is facing. The significance is that depending on the direction, attacks inflict more or less damage. As such, attacking from behind yields the greatest effect. What is known so far is that after a unit carries out an attack, the player is able to choose which direction to face before ending their turn. It is up to the player to anticipate the enemy's movement and adjust a unit's direction accordingly. Before pressing on, there is one more thing which requires attention. This blue orb at the top of the screen. I'll sound like a broken record player, but I swear this will be my last time I say the phrase, "This never appears again" throughout the trailer. Please don't kill me. The only logical reasoning I came up with is that this probably represents the ice prison that Li Xia has been sealed in. Why? Because all the gameplay clips we've seen so far obviously take place very early in the game. The levels are proof of that. These clips probably take place before Yoon and Bin discovered the sealed Li Xia. Take a few seconds to just stare at the orb. It's pulsating like a heartbeat. In the beginning of the trailer, what did we see? Bingo! A pulsating light right before she broke free. Let's ride these waves of enlightenment to the next clip. Before rolling the footage, I'd like to take the opportunity to point out a few things. All gameplay clips from this point on take place late in the game. Look at all these high-level units. Wait a second. That's Guan Yin Ping. And that's Zhou Yu! It's time to get hype, people. Certain characters from our beloved Dynasty Warriors games will indeed appear in Eiketsuden. Taking a look back at the Famitsu interview, when asked about characters that will appear in the game, producer Miyauchi responded with, "All characters who do appear will have special conversation events, and all of them can also be recruited with specific requirements." Of course, they won't be able to fit the entire cast of Dynasty Warriors 8, and that's including the expansions. Since the story follows Zhao Yun, expect a huge percent of the available characters to originate from Shu. All I know is that if the magnificent, elegant, and strikingly sublime Zhanghe does not meet the cut, Omega Force better prepare themselves while I swim across the Pacific, conquer their headquarters, and force them to dance till dawn! Sorry, I got a little carried away there. Let's forget this just happened. So, behold! Here are some characters that have made it in. If you've been paying attention, chances are that you've noticed the emblems assigned to each unit. There are 4 of them: the reticle, shoe, sword, and shield. I'd assume that the game assigns every unit into one of these 4 different types. Kind of like how the roster of Dynasty Warriors 8 was divided between Shadow Sprint, Whirlwind, Dive, and Dash. Here's my guess on what each type specializes in. Units with the reticle specialize in accuracy, more hits connect, and less hits miss. Shoe units specialize in mobility, larger movement range, and possibly faster movement refill. Sword units specialize in raw damage output, higher damage, and shield units specialize in damage mitigation or have larger pools of health. But of course, I could be totally wrong, so take it with a grain of salt. By the way, there's actually one more emblem, the circle. Since it's been seen exclusively on flag carriers and officers, it must mean those units are special. With all of that addressed, notice that Lei Bin is currently selected. Boom! Now, Zhao Yun has been selected. Meanwhile, a new peculiar part of the UI surfaces. Sweet! So this is how the player takes control of his or her units. Each controllable unit is represented here, and the player simply hits L1 or R1 to switch between them. That isn't the only new appearance in the UI. 2 new buttons appear down below. The Options button brings up various battlefield information. To what extent? Well, expect the usual things like how many units are currently on the field, and etc. Triangle will switch information, meaning the player will be able to toggle certain information in the UI. Hopefully, footage of this will emerge in the future, but here in the present time, the analysis must go on. As Yoon's cursor hovers over Zhou Yu, his information will pop up in the bottom left corner. Remember how I said resonance and the circles disappear? Well, here's the proof. No option for resonance as well as no circles. Here's another shot at Zhao Yun preparing to attack. Whoa! Look at how much stronger Yun has become. Before we revel in the plethora of new information, shift your focus towards the battlefield. Look at the red markers showcasing the attack's area of effect. It matches the attack range diagram exactly. That's pretty awesome, but wait a minute. Isn't this the same attack we saw long ago? Whoa. Get hyped, fellow warriors, cause it looks like attacks can be upgraded in some way. The Famitsu interview revealed that generals can learn skills, and by doing so, their stats can be customized. The player's characteristics will be shown here when they place priorities on which skills to earn first. The most meaningful change here is the attack range, and the fact that it is now considered an EX attack. In Dynasty Warriors 8, EX attacks were special attacks unique to each character. In Eiketsuden, it is unclear what exactly they do. Since we're comparing the 2 versions of the attack menu, take a look at this set of kanji. Any fan would know that's the kanji for the signature Musou attack. In the past clip, it's lit up as yellow. This time, it's grayed out. Why? It's fairly obvious. Musou attacks require at least one of the 3 bars in the Musou gauge to be full. That concludes everything I could find in the clip. Let's move on. Of course, Wei's poster boy must also make his appearance. Look! Another character confirmed. It's Luling Koei. Besides that, the only noteworthy thing here is that we get a nice close-up at the variety of enemy units. The expected flurries of peons! a flag carrier, and an officer wielding a spear. Following that, Yin Ping is seen strutting her stuff. A quick glance at her character information further proves that the Musou gauge is indeed split between 3 bars. Yes, it's about time the player chose the option to stand by. The option behaves exactly as one would expect. Essentially, it's a pass or skip option. Something weird that I noticed was that this thing popping up during the action of standing by. Maybe the player skipped some generic text perhaps? Let's not get too worked up with a minor thing like this. Sally forth, my friends. Ooh, now this is where it gets interesting. What's this? Is this a transition screen that takes place after an attack is finished? Seems probable since the UI shows an attack right here. What's even more amusing are the numerous peon corpses. Now that was certainly a massacre. These images imply that actual attacks take place in another instance. When the attack is finished, it will transition back to the usual grid-like battlefield. This is what we see here. Once the transition to the grid-like battlefield is finished, every single corpse magically disappears and we are greeted by some red text. Then Koei was able to land 3 of the 4 hits on the enemy. If that's not impressive, look at how massive the range of her attack is. Although we don't know the exact range, I think we get the idea of how badass she is. As the analysis nears the end, we are hit with a flurry of flaming screenshots, highly reminiscent of Chirby. Don't bother trying to figure out what's going on in each image, trust me, I've tried. This last part of the trailer seems like it could be part of the CGI opening of Eiketsuden. The 3 sworn brothers of the Peach Garden Oath, Liu Bei, Zhang Fei, and Guan Yu materialize out of a yellow void of nothingness. Yoon and Bean seem to be staring at something terrifying.
Look at that! It's Lu Bu!
Does this scene have a hidden meaning? Is Lu Bu the end-all villain in Eiketsuden? We won't know for sure, but he surely is a candidate. 2 words. Holy shit! Could this glowy Super Saiyan-like energy be the special power, Li Xia, bestowed upon Zhao Yun? Or could it be an over-exaggerated spectacle without any hidden meanings? A wild Super Saiyan 4 Lu Bu has appeared, and boom! Epic logo transition. Fellow warriors, I don't know about you, but after all this analyzing, I'm hyped for Eiketsuden. I want to give a huge thanks to BlackKite for his impeccable translating skills. He's awesome. Follow this badass on Twitter and check out his YouTube channel. Links in the description below. Mission complete! If I missed anything, leave a comment below. Let's hope Eiketsuden will eventually be localized outside of Japan. Until the next batch of juicy infos, stay tuned for more Musou greatness. Thanks for watching, mash that like button if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to board the Joshticle by subscribing. I'm OhhhmyJosh, and remember, do not pursue Liu Bu. Unless you're Diao Chan, of course.
Feel the power of my magic!